Fourth Way by P.D. Ouspensky. Chapter 5. It would be good if from time to time you tried to summarize in your mind what you've learned so far, because after some time of coming to lectures and talks, one begins to forget the chronology of the ideas, and it is important to remember the order in which they are given. Out of all you have heard, the most important idea is that with certain knowledge and certain efforts, man can develop. He can complete himself. The development of man, if it is a process, and he says in brackets, it is not obligatory at all, passes through certain definite stages or steps. If you return to the beginning, you will remember what was said about the absence of consciousness in man, and the fact that when a man realizes it, this realization gives him the possibility of acquiring consciousness, and you will see that this is the direction in which man can develop. As long as he does not realize that he is simply a machine and that all his processes are mechanical, he cannot begin to study himself, for this realization is the beginning of self-study. So study must begin in this way. We must realize that we do not possess self-consciousness, that we cannot be aware of ourselves at moments of action or thought. This is the first step. The second step is to realize that we do not know ourselves. We do not know our machine and how it works. And the next step is to realize that we have to study methods of self-study. We observe ourselves all our life, but we do not know what self-observation means. Real self-observation must be based on facts. So, one of the first points is how to remember oneself, how to be more conscious. It is not enough to admit this absence of consciousness in oneself. One has to see it in actual fact to verify it from personal observation. We do not realize that consciousness is what consciousness is and what it implies. If one becomes conscious for half an hour, it is incredible what one can see and learn. So it is an aim in itself because of what it brings, and it also means a step towards objective consciousness. It is necessary to speak a little about this, about what is meant by the 4 degrees of consciousness man can possess. If we take it from the point of view of cognition of truth, then in sleep we cannot know the difference between what is true and what is not true. Things we see in dreams all look alike. In the waking state, we already have more opportunity to recognize the difference between things. The shape of things is made out by our eye, the surface of things by touch, and to a certain extent, we can orient ourselves by the perceptions of our instruments of sense. So there is an objective element, but we ourselves remain subjective to ourselves. When we become self-conscious, we become objective to ourselves. And in objective consciousness, we can know objective truth about everything. These are the degrees of consciousness. Question put by Ouspensky. Must we change our knowledge in order to see things as they really are and know the truth? Answer by Gurdjieff. No. In this state of consciousness, we cannot come to things as they are. We have to change our state of consciousness, but we can take off some layers of lying. Things are surrounded by lying. We can take off 1, 2, 3 skins and come nearer to real things. Question. I am not clear about the higher consciousness. Could we at least know how to think about it? Answer. We realize the possibility of higher consciousness when we realize we are not conscious at all. We are conscious only at rare moments, without possibility of control. Now we are in 2 states, in sleep and half awake. Theoretical comparisons of states of consciousness and descriptions in words will not help. But when we begin to awake, we realize the state in which we are now. It is necessary to find moments of self-remembering, and then at these moments you will see the difference. By studying yourself, you will see that you can be very near to sleep, or you can be very near to self-consciousness. So study begins with a study of these different states in ourselves. For instance, when we take ourselves as one, or do not think about it, then we are nearly asleep. But when we begin to divide ourselves and know that at every moment it is only one I or one group of I's speaking, then we are nearer to self-consciousness, nearer to objective facts. There are different ways of studying consciousness in oneself. In the beginning, the first thing is the realization that one cannot be conscious when one wants to. The best time to realize this is after you've been speaking or doing something. Suppose you've been talking about some important business, or a letter, or some writing. Then ask yourself, was I conscious at that time? The second thing in the beginning is the realization that you are not one, that you have many different I's. Question: how is one to recognize when one is self-conscious? Answer: you will know it is a quite different feeling. If you try to be conscious for a moment and then compare it with another moment when you did not try to be conscious, you will see the difference. It cannot be described. One moment you are aware of yourself, another moment you are not. You do things, you speak, you write, and you are not conscious. Only you must remember that it is said from the very beginning that we must study not only states of consciousness, but also obstacles to consciousness. So we must study them and then remove them. All these obstacles are in ourselves. External circumstances we cannot change. We have to take them as they are and change inwardly in these circumstances. Question: if you observe yourself for a moment, are you conscious at that moment? Answer: not necessarily. It may be quite mechanical, but if you are conscious at the same time that you observe, the line of your attention will resemble two arrows, one showing attention directed on the thing you observe, and another on yourself. Question: I cannot understand the link between self-observation and self-remembering. How to begin? What to do? Answer: self-remembering is an attempt to be aware of yourself. Self-observation is always directed at some definite function. Either you observe your thoughts, or movements, or emotions, or sensations. It must have a quite definite object which you observe in yourself. Self-remembering does not divide you. You must remember the whole. It is simply the feeling of I, of your own person. They may come together, particularly at later stages, and then you will be able to do both at the same time. Observe something definite, or recognize manifestations in yourself, and remember yourself. But in the beginning, the two things are quite different. You begin with self-observation. That is the normal way. And through self-observation, you realize that you do not remember yourself. When you realize that, and that at very rare moments you do remember yourself, then any person who is not definitely prejudiced will be able to understand that it is possible to increase these moments of self-remembering and then try to do it. Question: I find it difficult to decide whether I really observe myself or only remember things afterwards. Answer: in the beginning, there is no particular necessity to worry about which is which. Just do what you can, either observe at the moment, or remember it immediately, or remember it after some time. But later, you will catch particular moments when you can be aware of yourself in an actual moment when things happen. That will be self-remembering. Question: how do you know of the miraculous results which will follow self-remembering? Answer: you see, this is connected with the whole idea of development, with the possibility of changing being. This is the first thing that we must understand, that man is not bound to remain as he is. He can change. There are different degrees of man that can be attained. after long and persistent work. If we can be more conscious, this will make higher work centers. The functioning of higher centers will be in many ways miraculous. The idea of self-remembering enters into many systems and school teachings, but it is not in the right place. It is never put first. But this system says that you do not remember yourself, and that if you understand that you do not remember yourself, you may be able to achieve something. Self-awareness is the greatest change possible, because in ordinary conditions of life, nobody is aware of himself. And yet, people do not realize this. Everybody's sitting here. If they ask themselves sincerely whether they are aware of themselves, will have to answer that they are not. Nobody is aware. The whole idea is to be aware of yourself in this place, in this moment. This is the beginning, for one has to begin somewhere. Later it may take different forms. Many other forms may be included in it. Nothing can describe this. It is material for observation and study. Descriptions will not help. One has to practice. Normally, nobody remembers himself. Nobody is aware of himself. This is the ordinary state of a human being, of a man-machine. But if he knows about it, if he realizes it, and thinks about it, it becomes possible. Only in the beginning, self-remembering is very slow in coming, very small, with long lapses of not remembering. And I'm going to pause here. Till soon.